Washington, DC. Come with me on an imaginary journey down an alternative timeline. Let's imagine all of this
Elon Musk!
was just a bad dream. Let's expand the Washington Metro. This is the Washington Metro. The Washington Metro, like other rapid transit systems built during Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society, has some unique quirks and features. 1. The distance between stops on most lines tends to be very far apart. Compare the average stop spacing on the Washington Metro to other iconic rapid transit systems in America like the New York Subway or the Chicago L, and you'll see what I mean. This leads to quirk number 2, which can largely explain quirk number 1. The Washington Metro was designed during the rise of auto-centric urbanism. See, by the 70s, automobile travel had become the most favored mode of transportation in the eyes of the American public. The General Motors streetcar conspiracy, which saw automobile and oil corporations collude to supplant rail transportation with automobiles, was by now decades-old forgotten news. The handful of urban rail networks being miraculously built during this time of period had to conform to the auto-centric urban planning practices at the time. Auto-centric urbanism directly resulted in suburban sprawl, which meant that population nodes where metro stations could feasibly be built were much further apart. This increased distance between stations meant that the trains on the Washington Metro now had to be capable of top speeds faster than any of the legacy subway trains in America in order to remain competitive with driving. As a result, this new generation of rail transit networks built in the automobile age were indirectly the progenitors of modern-day higher-speed rapid transit networks like the Delhi RRTS, the Seoul GTX, and various higher-speed lines throughout China. Quirk number 3. Autocentrism also meant that instead of encountering nice walkable streets, riders exiting the metro would usually encounter this shit.
Oh, hell no, man. What the?
See, the planners were tasteful enough to keep the historic city center free of parking lots, but the suburbs outside of downtown usually didn't get the same treatment. Instead of transforming the land around stations into a useful streetscape, most stations ended up as park and rides. Quirk number 4. The density of coverage by metro services is extremely downtown-centric. This makes sense because central DC is denser and has more points of interest, but the problem is that metro coverage becomes progressively harder to come by the further away from downtown one travels. Meaning, if you're anywhere near the National Mall and you want to get on a train, you're eating pretty good. But if you live anywhere out here, well, go take out a loan so you can go buy a car. What? Are you poor? Huh? Go buy a car, buddy. What, you hate freedom? You a communist? Huh? Go buy the goddamn car. It's American made now, see? Higher price is a good thing for some reason. It only took me 5 years to pay off my Chevy. Why can't you? Bankruptcy isn't real. Can't hurt you. It's on your head. Let's start by addressing the suburban coverage problem. For this specific design exercise, we'll focus on these two areas. The broad conceptual solution is simple. Increase the number of lines out in the suburbs to expand the catchment area of the metro. A denser web of lines means more suburbanites will find themselves within reach of a metro station. This is where we run into our first hurdle. The Washington Metro is known for having massive stations. This means that while Washington Metro has arguably the coolest station architecture in North America, it also has a major self-inflicted handicap. See, larger stations are more expensive to build. It's also harder to justify closer stop spacing on a metro line. After all, why build a station here when there's already a massive station just a few hundred feet up the road? This is not to mention the issue of train sizes. Sure, longer train sets mean more passenger capacity, but it also means that trains will need to be slower when station distances are shorter. This is just basic physics. The weight of 8 loaded train cars mean that the train speeds will have to be slower in order for trains to safely brake in time. The solution to this is simple. We downsize. Instead of 8-car trains, let's run 2 to 3-car trains. And instead of stations with platforms that are 600 to 700 feet long, let's keep the platforms at a cozy 300 feet maximum length. Now we can have a comfortable aggregation of stations spaced closer together, being served by trains that don't need to operate at a snail's pace. If you want to see this concept in action, go watch Simon Anderson's videos about the Copenhagen Metro.
Vi elsker Danmark. Stor peak energi. Stor peak energi. Stor peak. Stor peak. Stor.
Now that we've got that part figured out, the next step is to move these riders from these massive sprawls of suburbs into this densely concentrated part of downtown DC. A good precedent to follow is the Stockholm Metro.
Fuck dig! Giv skåne tilbage til Danmark! De her, de er anti-IKEA-aktion!
Here, branched lines join together at the historic city center to optimize space efficiency. Now, the city center is much smaller and older than the outer suburbs. By consolidating 7 branches of metro lines into 2 corridors, the Stockholm Metro can keep coverage at an appropriate level inside of the urban core while minimizing disruption to the historic city center above ground at Gamla Stan. Therefore, in our proposed expansion to the Washington Metro, we'll have a single line that splits into 3 branches as it leaves downtown. The branches will converge to the west just before Rosslyn and to the east just before Potomac Avenue. This new Teal line will have western termini at Oakton, Greenbrier, and George Mason University, and eastern termini at Woodmore Town, Forestville, and National Harbor. As an added bonus, we'll also include a quarter-loop orbital pink line in Northern Virginia between Tysons and Alexandria, with a secondary branch extending to Oxon Hill in Maryland. This Oxon Hill branch can then be further extended once the southeastern Maryland suburbs become as developed as their Northern Virginia counterparts. This will make Metro less downtown-centric and make trips easier for intra-suburban riders who no longer need to travel downtown only to transfer back out again. Lastly, let's talk about land use around our new stations. Some of you might be asking, why would you pick these sites? Don't you need to have better land use to have a viable transit station? That, my friend, is where our special ingredient comes in: transit-oriented development. Each of these empty strip malls has the potential to be redeveloped into a dense, walkable node of commerce and housing, transforming the land around each new metro station into a mini downtown. You can see this method through a lot of North America in places like Vancouver, Toronto, and Los Angeles. But Washington, DC itself has a rich history of building tons of TOD alongside expansion of the metro. Look at these satellite photos from before and after the metro was built. The presence of new transit has injected life into parts of the DMV that weren't there previously. But TOD has one more feature that could turn it into a superpower for transit agencies: property investments. Transit operators like the Hong Kong MTR have figured out that if transit agencies develop real estate on the land they own around stations, they can get a new revenue stream that's even more lucrative than rider fares. For an area like the DMV, which is currently experiencing a housing shortage, this strategy kills 2 birds with 1 stone. WMATA gets a juicy new revenue stream from real estate, and the DMV housing crisis can get some mitigation thanks to the influx of new housing units. It's a win-win. Now, in school, the instructors always told us to show, not tell, and all I've been doing for the past 10 minutes is telling, so I'm gonna shut up and just let the montage play.